Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
We're coming back now on our climb to 500, I guess is what it is. Starting off with episode 401.
Yep. For a while we were talking about doing a comic book retrospect. And for a minute there's that period where you're both doing, like I do a solo episode, you do a solo episode, where we talk about some books we liked. And
That was called the Old Man Orange Comic Book Club
the
show?
OMO Comic Book Show.
Comic Book Show, and you can find those on either YouTube or Newgrounds if anyone cares.
Yeah, and those right there, so essentially what happened is Spencer and myself would grab a book, or it would usually be 2 books for me, sometimes 1 or 2 for you, it would vary, and just talk about, like, they usually have a similar theme of some kind, or be kind of complete opposites from one another in one way or the other. And there is one I was actually going to do. There is the writer of the book we're going to talk about today, Matthew Rosenberg, and he wrote a book called We Can Never Go Home. Now, I even talked about that book when it first came out. I even met him when the first issue was coming out. It was over at Comix Experience. I was just in there buying some books, and I just saw this poster it was this yellow cover of a guy and a girl holding hands. I think that when they were holding hands, there's like this glow. It had like this real kind of like 90s kind of punk rock graphic art design to it. And I was like, oh, what's this? Like, oh, that guy is coming into, it's a book he's putting out. He's coming by, signing the first issue later today. I'm like, all right, well, let me just grab this book. Maybe I'll come by later. So I read it. I'm like, oh, that was pretty cool. And then I came by and, signed it. He talked to me for a minute. I forgot the other guy's name, but there's a guy who wrote a book called Five Ghosts, which is about a guy who has, like, the 5 different ghosts of, like, I think it's King Arthur, Sherlock Holmes, Dracula. He has these different identities that live within him that makes him like the world's best archaeologist. And there's a few more that they got by me. Anyway, so We Can Never Go Home. I read that book, loved it, and then didn't hear nothing about it for a while. And the graphic novel came out. Like, oh, sweet. So I read the graphic novel, totally loved that. And I'm like, I wonder what else this guy's up to. So I asked the comic book store owner, and he's like, oh, well, he just came out with this new book called 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. And I read that one, and I loved that one even more. And this one was more of a comedy. But I was like, I have an episode almost done of the OMO comic book show. It was going to be one of We Can Never Go Home and 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. Just focused on Matthew Rosenberg, but I never finished it because I'm a fucking piece of shit. So we were just saying, well, why don't we just do our first comic book retrospect just between the two of us? Like, yeah, sure, why not?
Well, it's funny because we've done a handful of ones where we talk about like a certain comic book, like, well, let's say it's a Batman one or something like that. So there's stuff that's very close to it, or like, we did Superman, like issue 1000 and so on. But out of all the episodes, it is kind of weird that, like, we've done video game retrospects, we've done a lot of movie retrospects, and we always talked about doing comic book ones. And I don't know why we never got around to it, because to me, it's always like there's always those books that are like really good, and you're always kind of like, you know what? It'd be fun to go back and pull that one off the shelf and reread it and then talk all about it. Just because, there's just so many comic books, out there and so on. They just always kind of get like lost in time. Even if they're big ones, it could be a Batman book and it can be lost in time real quick. That's just how it goes. So I think it's just kind of fun to like pull some out and say, hey, let's check this out. And even though this one's a little bit newer, it's still like one of those ones like, hey, it's a comic book. Like a year later, it could be, it's not on the shelf probably anymore as easily. But no, this 4 Kids Walk to a Bank was a really cool one. And it's actually kind of nice because I've just been reading, like, because of like the Indie Comics Club, I feel like I only read like indie comics anymore. And it's like, makes it hard to even get to my own stack of things. And it's almost like all like the kind of like the big comic books. It's like, it's been a while since I've been able to read one, and it's like, it's kind of nice to go back, just a little bit change. I'm not saying anything against the indie comics, but you know what I mean? Just, it's nice to have that variety in life.
Yeah, and this was a book I just went into I like the dude's last book he made, so let me check this one out. That's all I went into knowing other than the title. And you look at the back of it, it says things like Tarantino meets the Goonies, which I can kind of see, but it kind of reminds me sort of like, I don't know, it's like it conjures up so many things, because first off, this book takes place in either the late 80s or early 90s. I think maybe really early 90s. And
what's weird too about that is it had, like, at first when I was reading it, I thought it was almost taking place in the 50s, because clearly when its book goes on, it's the 80s or whatnot, but like it has this almost like very old-timey 1950s sort of style to it, too. It doesn't really even feel that 80s, excluding, like, the handful of movie references and, like, you know, the arcades. The arcades was kind of the main thing that gave it away, you know? But other than that, though, it's like it felt almost older than that. It was kind of interesting.
The only thing that made me think maybe it's the early 90s is there's a part when, and I'm not gonna, we'll try and keep it because I know sometimes we jump ahead to this part, jump ahead to this part. We're gonna try and move chronologically in with this book, but there's this one part where it gets very interesting with its page layouts. Like sometimes, like if someone's planning like a scheme or a heist, it shows the whole layout step by step, but it shows it like it's a map and kind of looking down. And while somebody is kind of, and sometimes it'll be a little funny by adding in other things like that are not important to the scene, but they're just there anyway. And they have this scene where somebody's escaping a house and it's just focusing on all these points where this character is at this point, where this character is at that point. And then the far corner in the basement, you see someone on the computer watching Frankenstein suck off the Wolfman. So that's the one thing, like, oh, maybe it's somewhere in the early 90s, or I don't know.
Yeah, it might be like that. I mean, like, I don't even know if it is. I mean, that's like that'd be like one of the few things that gives it away for like the early.
Or maybe
90s.
Maybe he was watching some weird underground, like maybe it wasn't on the computer, maybe it was an old TV or something. But yeah,
that's probably that might have been what it was, more like an old TV or something like that. Because the only reason I say is because like even all the computers in there are all like 80s computers.
Mm-hmm. But another thing about it being in the 80s, it's not like, 'cause, all right, I like Stranger Things, but I kind of get what people say when it kind of like harkens back a little hard on some of the 80s shit. I like Paper Girls. I get where that gets kind of hard. I think Paper Girls is a little bit more bad about jamming the 80s shit down your throat than
it
Stranger
panders
Things
a
is.
lot, I feel. That's the only thing about Paper Girls. It's not a bad book, but it's one of those ones where it's like, okay, guys, you can pump the brakes. We know what time period it is. That's what I think this made this book good, is the references were so little that, like, as I said, like, I almost felt like I was in the 50s. That's how much of a pull away it was from there, and I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And plus, there's something else about this book. If you just grab this book and flip through it, you might be a little confused at first. If you just flip through random pages, because at some point, some crazy, fantastical sci-fi shit or literally fantasy shit is going on, and then it goes back to really real world stuff. Each chapter opens up with the kids having a fantasy, whether they're playing with action figures or playing a video game or playing Dungeons and Dragons. And something about it is, I didn't notice it the first time I read it, but the second time I read it, I noticed it a lot more. It kind of always starts off the same way and ends the same way. So it's kind of giving you like a heads up, like, these kids, they're about to pull off this bank heist. This is exactly how it's going to go, because this is how these guys work together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, it starts off and then it just... What I like, too, is it has those kind of arguments and conversations that kind of kids have where they just... You'll probably be trying to get a real simple point across, but between you and your friends, you end up just like arguing and talking so much that like you just go off in like this whole like argument tangent that really leads nowhere. Like you're making absolutely no progress, if not even going backwards. And then it kind of comes back around finally to like what you're trying to get at, and by that point everybody's kind of lost.
Yeah, and like, what we're doing again? Oh yeah, and you already lost the game. So the main characters are Peggy. She's the main character. She's this
Paige?
tomboy. Oh, Paige? Oh, yeah, Paige. Though. Yeah.
Peggy! Oh.
Peggy, damn it, Peggy! Paige, yeah.
Honestly, that's the episode, dude. Damn it, Peggy!
God damn it, Peggy, you stupid bitch! Oh, Hank, don't stop saying that to me! Yeah, damn, stop talking shit to Mom! Just shut the fuck up, Bobby!
Don't make me tie you up, Peggy, and drop you off at Bill's house. You know what he'll do to you.
Hank, you hitting boy again? Hit him harder! Maybe he's making him smarter! Ha ha ha! Anyway. So, no, that's a lost episode of King of the Hill. So,
You got Paige.
You got Paige, you got Walter, who is this really shy, nervous little black kid who's the nerd of the group. And for some reason,
he's the kid that makes me feel like it's in the 1950s, because he's dressed like it's 1950s.
He is.
He's like your old school. He's like really like what a real kind of nerd or geek is, you know? Because nowadays that word gets thrown around so much that it can mean anything. You could be into like fashion and now you're a nerd, or you could be into blenders and now you're a nerd. Where back then it's like no.
You be into blenders, now you're a nerd.
You know what I mean? You know how it is. Shit. Nowadays,
Pro Cup 5000
nowadays you can
is
be
not
into
nearly as
sports
good
and
as
you're a nerd. It doesn't make any sense anymore. But it's like that's like traditional nerd. Like, what's he into? He's into fucking science.
Well, it's like, oh, then there's him. Well, plus the other thing about Walter is whenever they play the game, because Paige is the one always leading the group. She's the leader of the group. She's the smartest. She's probably the most ambitious. She's
got like the tomboy, and because that reminds me almost like my cousin back in the day when we were like kids, like when we'd play stuff. Like she would always play like the men characters, and nobody questions it when you're a kid. You know what I mean? Only as an adult does you go, oh, that's interesting.
And like her character, like for the opening in Paige is they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and her character is Sir Manly. She's like tomboy. You know, everything always opens up with kind of stats on every character. Walter, for some reason, he's always the girl whenever they play a game. He's always the girl most of the time. And then
that makes sense because I'll say this: we've always had those friends that like always play like the girl characters, like no matter what video game you play or something like that. I mean, granted, I'll say this: I play the girl like half the time when I play a video game.
Well, it's like, you know, like, oh, he's really good with Princess Peach or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Zelda's my best character on Smash Brothers.
She's one of my best characters. She's not my best. I mean, this is going to sound very vanilla. My best character is probably Mario or, like, Toon Link. But still. I discovered I'm actually good with Wario, which is kind of depressing, because Wario is one of those characters. I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm like, oh, man.
He's a pretty good character, though. I'm not going to lie. It's like just like the Animal Crossing character, the villager. You don't want to admit it, but it's a good character.
Oh, I fucking hate that. I hate Villager. I just fucking hate him, so I don't play as him. I'm never going to know.
It's best not to know, maybe.
I'm like, Vega's not my favorite character in Street Fighter, but he's one of the characters I'm best with, so it's one of those things, all right, you know, Vega's all right, but... But anyway, moving forward, then you got Slim, who is like his thing is like he's Stretch, yeah. Tallest kid in the 7th grade, and he's kind of more of like the straight-laced guy. I mean, you know, Paige kind of keeps everybody together, but Stretch is like the guy you can rely on. He's very more of like, he's not too nerdy, but at the same time, he's not overly ambitious, but he's like, for lack of a better word, kind of the muscle. Like, if you tell Stretch to get something done, he's gonna do it, and he's more of just straight-laced. He's probably the one that has the least amount of character, but he's probably the most loyal and most kind of like, he's like the best friend to Paige, more or less.
Well, you know what's the interesting too about, before you go any farther, like on Stretch, is he almost like, speaking of Hank Hill, is I like his kind of like nerdy ability is he's good at like wood shop and like shop class. I thought that was kind of an interesting one. Like, well, you got, what's his name? Walter, you know, he's a scientist. You got Stretch over here, who's, you know, he can build anything almost. He's that kid, you know what I mean? It's like the different type of kind of nerdy, or like almost just different skills.
Where Paige is more, she's just really ambitious. She has a lot of charisma, and she's good at holding the group together.
Yeah, she's the leader. They got the best character.
Then you got Burger, who on paper, you read this character, he's this character you should not like, because he just fucks everything up. He's annoying. He does nothing but inhibit the group.
He's fat.
And he's like just rude.
He's Jewish. I mean, I'm not saying that against it, but like he just is.
That's not a minus. It just happens to be a coincidence. That's all I'm saying.
It made me kind of question the guy that wrote the book. It's like, oh, I see how this is. He puts a Nazi guy in there who's almost like a overgrown child. There's the fat Jewish kid that everybody kind of hates.
Well, his last name's Rosenberg, so I'm guessing Burger was like probably a friend next door. I'm guessing that's what this character is. He always has like the little tiny little hat, little like what do they call those?
Oh, the kippa.
The kippa, yeah. And it's like they mention the hat several times. Like once at some point, like the cops are chasing Burger. He's just like, hey fat kid, stop running or you use your stupid little hat. Like just shit like that. This has a lot of great lines like that. But anyway, whatever it is about Burger, you shouldn't like him. He's just fucking stupid and annoying. For some reason, he's likable. It's one of those things. It's kind of like a Cartman type thing.
Yeah, he's totally like the Cartman, like the shitty friend that nobody really wants to invite over, but somehow, some way, he's always there to hang out because you always need that fourth player. Yeah,
like they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and at some point he's just like, "Wait, who's the dragon?" The dragon starts talking to him because you don't really know what's going on. You first open the book, and there's like fantasy shit going on, and he says like, "What? Are you the dragon?" "No, I'm not the dragon. I'm the dungeon master." He's like, "I can ride the fucking dragon." "Dude, you can't ride the fucking dragon." He gets in the dragon, all of a sudden there's this big orange tidal wave, like, "Oh, you fucked it up!" And then it cuts to real life, and you see it's like an orange soda bottle spilled over like a D&D board. Like, you fucked it up, Burger! Like, it was a stupid game anyway. Besides, I couldn't ride the dragon. You're not supposed to ride the fucking dragon!
I like to, it's like, he's like, yeah, but you spilt the soda. He's like, yeah, but I didn't put it on the table. Dude, you were the one who put it on the table.
It's like a lot of that kind of shit, yeah.
Well, because I feel like everybody's known somebody like that when they're a kid. It's just that shitty friend who, well, you almost like wouldn't even call him a friend, but it's just that thing where you're like, well, you know what? We need an extra person, so let's hang out with them. And they, if anything, they're always there, no matter what. Even if they do fuck things up all the time, somehow, some way, they still always pull through to be in there.
They're there to play Mario Party or Smash Brothers, whatever. You just kind of tolerate them. And that's really what Burger is. And
while insulting everybody the whole time that he's there.
Yeah, and they never really invite him. He just always shows up.
Yeah.
And there's even a point in the book where Paige is saying, hey guys, I'm sorry I got you all involved in this. Well, Burger, I'm not sorry to you. You just kind of showed up. But everybody else...
Well, there's also a part too where I like when I know we're kind of jumping around now, like we said we weren't gonna do, but there's a part where
not spoiling.
These are all like character moments, I guess. But there's a part where like Paige's dad's like, "Okay, kids, you all go home," and then looks at Burger, "Your home's that way. This is not
your own home.
Your own home."
He looks sad, like, oh, like he doesn't want to go home. Well, anyway, so these kids are playing games, and Paige's dad, I forgot her dad's name, but her dad, maybe they don't even say his name.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember his name either.
Well, what's interesting about her dad is he's a single dad, and you realize that he's this guy, because, I think a lot of times when you write single dads, people usually try to do one of two things. They either, like, he's a fuck-up who... just like, oh, God damn it, I can't take it. Baseball, you know that. The fucking Yankee game is on. Let's watch that baseball game. You got that? Or you got the guy who's just trying really hard to be a good dad. Now, the thing is, he's trying really hard to be a good dad, but you see he has a past. He's trying to be the button-up, shirt-tucked-in dad who cooks and who's reliable, but he has a past. And that's what's kind of interesting, that bouncing duality. He's trying to be the whole, like, hey, sweetheart, hey, princess. But then when things really go bad, he's all like, you should have knocked that kid right the fuck out. But don't, because violence is bad. But, it sinks in every so often.
Yeah, he's kind of got this little bit of a... He's just got a lot more dimension, and it's not like... And the nice thing, too, I like about it is because the one thing I'm sick and tired more than anything else, especially when it comes to movies, you see it a lot. I guess in comic books, I don't see it nearly as often, but... is just the shitty family dynamic. Like, that's one of those ones, like, we've seen so many movies where it's just, like, kids don't get along with their parents, and the worst part about it always is, like, they're like, Dad, you're never home. He's like, yeah, well, who the fuck's providing your fucking, like, meal ticket? You know what I mean? You gotta go to a nice school, you gotta go on fucking vacations, you gotta hang out with friends, you get toys. Fuck you if Dad has to go to work. That's always how I felt. Even as a kid, I'm like, fuck that person, you know what I mean? Like, what the hell is wrong with this kid? And
You're just pro Disney dad.
Yeah, it's just like one of those ones like, no. Like, sometimes it's like, maybe it's just one of those ones like, I don't know, like, my dad was always at work, and I was used to that, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what it is, these kids just expect their, like, dad to be home, like, all day long, like, in these stories, and it's just like, ugh.
Like Jingle All the Way kid, yeah.
Yeah, well, that kid, yeah, that kid.
Fuck that kid.
He's got fucking Captain America painted on his wall, fuck him, he should be grateful for everything past that point.
Just like he's like that part where he's talking to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, you want to know why? You want to know why I couldn't make it? Because we live in a fucking 3-story house. That's fucking why."
Yeah, exactly. Dad had. There's traffic on the way home, huh?
But it wasn't. I don't think it was anything like really cool, like a purple belt. I think it was like something like, "Oh, you got an orange belt? That's the third belt. What do you fucking do?" Yeah. I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. How am I supposed to be impressed with that shit?
I know, it's like, I think it was like the yellow belt or something too, like it was like almost, yeah.
Oh, fuck off, that's nothing.
Maybe it was the purple belt, like one more up, or green belt maybe, I feel like that's the color it was, I don't know why I'm forgetting this feels like something I should know, but...
Trivia night, like, just, like, what was the belt the kid was getting in Jingle All the Way? Fuck, I know this!
I should know this, damn it, I'm on Jeopardy, why do I not remember this right now?
Yeah, but anyway, the family dynamic in this book is really good because you see it's not perfect, but you see that he loves his daughter and the daughter loves him back. And it's more of just like, it's not that they don't agree on how they feel about each other, it's they disagree on how to go about it. Because then what ends up happening, 4 shady guys that look like they are directly out of like The Outsiders, which is another thing that makes it look like it's part of the 50s.
See, because that was the thing too, is those guys come in. That's why I was so confused at first when I was reading this book. It was until they got to the video game section, I was like, what fucking year is this supposed to be?
Yeah, and they kind of show each one. They have funny, like, whenever a new character comes in, they'll usually have some kind of, like, D&D style stats on them or whatever. Like, it says, Vernon, 33 years old, getaway driver with an 85% success rate, +2 dexterity. Vernon, 35 years old, best poker player in Cell Block C, The Brains, +3 for leadership. Silk, 29 years old, temper that never served him well, +2 for rage. Skinhead Mike, 25-year-old, skinhead, 3 times plus for fascism. So, and then like you go through later, like they reintroduce those characters later, and they kind of have something similar. When it gets to Skinhead Mike, he's the reason villagers used pitchforks.
Yeah, I know, because they always make like the Frankenstein's monster kind of joke to him, and like, man,
he's always blank. He's never he just has like this. He's a skinhead. He's always just chewing gum. He has a little swastika under his eye. Never says anything.
Loves candy.
Yeah, he loves licorice specifically. Licorice. And they're always like, what's with the fucking Frankenstein Nazi?
Well, I think that's almost like kind of good writing too at the same time too, because it's like at this day and age, it's almost like you feel like, oh, there's a Nazi character. Guess what? He's just going to be saying like some racist shit. Guy doesn't say anything. In fact, the guy actually looks like a very lovable giant type character that just happens to have a swastika on his face. I think that
somebody talked him into that tattoo, and he didn't really like fight back.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think it's always interesting to kind of go like against like what like the stereotypical like character you assume that people are going to write about. I like when someone does something different like that and just gives you something like, yeah, he happens to be a Nazi, but he's not really doing anything bad. Just saying.
Well, what's also funny is once they come in there, they just make their way into the house. Like, hey, little girl, is your dad home? She's like, hey, fuck, who the fuck are you? Why are you just walking into our fucking house? Get the fuck out of here. And then, like, Silk comes by and just, like, socks her in the face. And before he does it, there's, like, this black and, like, just this black text, like, black background with yellow text saying, it's wrong to hit children under almost no circumstances should you hit a child. And
well, it's kind of funny because I had to flip back and forth between that, because I remember when it said that, and then I went to the next page, and it was like, wait, there's no panel of him actually hitting the girl. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. Oh, I get it now. It took me a moment to kind of register what the heck was going on there.
It's kind of like censoring itself, but at the same time being kind of like wink and nudge with it. And then that's when like Paige says like, burger now! And like he takes like the little ogre figurine, slingshots it right at Silk, and he has this eye patch now. So
yeah, just right in the eye.
He's like, did you just shoot a fucking dogger at me? And I like every time they bump shoulders with Silk, every time he gets more fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time something happens to that group, it always happens to Silk to a point where he's literally in a full body cast later.
Yeah, I mean, like he gets lit on fire. There's all kinds of things that keep happening to him.
So, then you find out there's history. They don't say what exactly. Their kids are at school the next day, and there's this one jock who's just bullying the kids, talking shit, and it's very believable. The thing about the dialogue between the kids is it's not like it's so... It's clearly kids talking shit, but it's not like... It doesn't feel like someone, like, trying to make them too clean-cut or too dirty. It sounds like very right down the middle, the way kids would, and how kids have no boundaries. And it starts off where they're talking... It gets progressively, like, more intense. It does this kind of, like, big, like, Frank Miller, Alan Moore panel where it's like all like where it's just a panel of just single of like this character's face back and forth all the way down where they're talking shit to each other. Mm-hmm. And it builds up to this guy's like lesbian, like douchebag, this that all of a sudden leads to, oh yeah, why'd your mom kill herself, and then beats the fuck out of the kid. That's when these assholes that come bust in their house later come by and say, hey, leave those kids alone, they're coming with us. And that leads to one of the funniest things, I think, in this book, real quick, because he says, look, I'm not getting into the car unless my friends come with me. And then it just cuts to this very awkward shot where everybody
like 8 people in a van.
Yeah, like, and like,
I like the part where like, well, I can't remember which kid it is. Probably it's Burger. He looks like, hey, there's a candy store. And like the Nazi guy looks over there too, all excited, like, no, we're not stopping for candy. Oh, and they both look down.
And then, like, Burger's like, hey, should this, like, Silk is driving. Like, should this one-eyed asshole be driving?
because I always mention Burger too. It's just like the kid. Like I like even describes it at the beginning. It's like it's just the kid who just swears for like no reason. Like he just swears a ton for really no reason. Just he's like started to like he learned swear words, and the next thing you know, now it's like it's every other line.
Pretty much. And then like I like how like the one guy is just like who has Walter gets sick very easily. Like violence happens, he gets sick. Like adrenaline goes to him, and somebody's like, "Oh shit, mine's about to throw up."
Yeah, because Walter always just throws up whenever anything goes like. Whenever he sees violence or he sees like something wrong or something not right, he's just got that weak stomach or whatever. And a lot of times it looks like he's throwing up blood. Like I'm not too sure. That might just be like the comic book like coloring, but
yeah.
Sometimes it's like I'm like, what the hell is he throwing up?
Yeah. And then
it's like Legacy of Kane going on there or something.
Essentially what ends up happening is they end up saying, look, your dad owes us some money. We knew your parent, we knew your mom, we knew your dad. There's unfinished business, just, no hard feelings, try to, stay out of our way. And the more they sneak around, she's like, fuck these guys. Who are these assholes coming in trying to, like, make us do shit, And then they end up coming by, they stake out, and they realize her dad is meeting up with them, and then they go back to their place, and to the criminal's place, and they realize, like, oh shit, these guys are planning a bank robbery, and they're trying to include her dad.
Yeah, because there's something, and it's like it doesn't really go into too much detail, which is kind of like I feel like that's fine for that. It's just something happened in the past. Since these guys all had to go to jail, Dad got away with it. It's almost like he owes them. That's it.
We should mention probably one of the ways they kind of get there is after staking them out, they go to like some kind of pizza place. And they bump into the asshole who's always talking shit to him, like the blonde jock kid who's very 80s. And, the girl ends up getting into a fight with him, like, yo, fuck you. What, just beats the shit out of the guy. She always, like, knocks the shit out of this dude. And then the guy working there comes by, he's just like a pirate, like, hey, not allowed that over here at Captain Chuckles or whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you going to do? You going to call the cops? You think the cops are going to arrest a kid for fighting in the middle of a pizza parlor? Then abrupt cut to her in a jail cell.
I like when the guy comes by, it's like, God, did you really have to throw her into, like, the holding cell? I also like doing like how like some people just refer to her as a boy. Like I just love how like some people don't even like call her a girl. They just keep always like referring to her as a boy, just like and like it's not like even question. It just says it like almost like the first time you see it, like was that a typo? It's like oh no, that's just how people talk to her sometimes. They just think they're talking to her like a little boy instead.
Pretty much
because she just looks like a little Native American kid running around almost at the end of the day.
Fun fact: the guy who's in the cell, who's just like later page, like bye Duncan. That guy is one of the main characters of We Can Never Go Home.
Kind of wanted that. That seemed like one of those kind of like, I bet you that's tied into something there.
Yeah, just the kid in the red hoodie and the black Converse.
Does that We Can Never Go Home have the same artist of like Tyler Bass or Boss or whatever his name was?
I don't think it's the same artist, but it looks like this looks kind of like, I'm going to say We Can Never Go Home. The characters a little bit more detailed, they look a little bit more realistic, but it has this thing where there's not a lot of shading. Like, the characters and details are really good, but not much shading or lighting effects throughout the book, which doesn't bother me.
It's got the flat colors, almost like old school comic books.
Yeah.
I actually, sometimes I almost like that more, in a sense. I don't know what it is, it's like...
I got the first issue autographed on my desk. Let me open it up and double check this. I think that's what it is. I mean, sometimes I think there's shading if it's like... crucial to like suspense or a moment, but most of the time, okay, this first there's a little bit of shading here and there, but most of the time it's kind of flat colors and with a lot of detail most of the time.
That's interesting.
So yeah, but anyway, I'm gonna say the artwork is different, but if We Can Never Go Home was a continual series, I can totally see it like, oh, you know what, I can see them switching artists and going off to something kind of like this. You know what I mean? Like, it looks like it's different artists, but it looks like it could take place in the same world,
Well, this one also has that artwork like kind of like that Hawkeye series.
Very much so.
Like it's kind of like, I mean, that's actually almost more detailed than that Hawkeye one because you always kind of forget how simple that Hawkeye like art is, but that's almost what makes it so like cool and neat. But the Matt Fraction Hawkeye, and I forgot what I feel bad because I can't think what the artist is on that Hawkeye one. The reason it looks like that, not Matt Fraction, but the reason it looks like that is because of this other guy.
Well, that always rings the 80s to me, and I think the reason why is because of Batman Year One. I feel like that art style is very reminiscent of Batman Year One.
Well, because it's like once like computers kind of came into the fold, it was like that's when you started getting like the ridiculous shading and all like this like over the top like details and and just having just all that stuff going on that almost kind of sometimes gets in the way. That's like when you look at 90s comic books sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I like a lot of 90s comic books, but you do have some of those ones where it's like, you probably could have pulled back on like this over-the-top details here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But going back to this book right here, so what ends up happening is while she goes to jail, we realize, okay, there's a detective there that's actually her uncle, and sometimes bails her out of situations.
And he looks like Jim Gordon.
Yeah, he does look like Jim Gordon. That's got to be intentional, because I'm gonna say this regarding We Can Never Go Home. There's a lot of like inside comic book jokes in there. Like there's a part where the two kids like, all right, well we need to get some different clothes here, so they stop like at a thrift store, and they have this montage where the girl is trying on different outfits that are all reminiscent of a different comic book character, and it's just like swimsuit, swimsuit, swimsuit. And then she's fully clothed, holding up like the Witchblade bikini. No. Moving on. Like, gets to the point like, oh, Hell Girl. Oh, Death from Sandman, So it's kind of just weird things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so it's very, and like it was making weird cut like characters you would not expect, not just not the obvious, oh, Supergirl, Wonder Woman, like, oh, deeper cuts than that. That's cool. A Tank Girl for a second. Anyway, so I wouldn't surprise you the least bit that he's meant to look like Jim Gordon. So, you see that she has a good relationship with her uncle, even though her uncle's always kind of like, you gotta knock this shit off, you gotta stop getting into trouble, stop getting into fights, whatnot. And while she does that, she goes on the computer in the database and looks up all the files on the different guys that her dad has done business with. And then from there, figures out what they've done, where they're at, and then they go over to their place, and that's where they discover the plans of what they're planning to do. The plans of what they're planning to do. Yeah.
The plans of what they're planning to do. And they're gonna do a bank heist is what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, no.
Sunday, fuck it.
Sunday, fuck day. Wait, Sunday, fuck it day. Well,
it's funny because there's when they get to the house, like, okay, nobody's home. They're currently over at this meeting. Like, all right, we gotta get away in there. Like, I know, I'll slam my way through the door. Like, Burger, that's not gonna work. And he just goes running, slamming it. Like, did it budge? Like, no, not at all. Then it slightly budges, and then like Stretch pops up. Yeah, I snuck in the back.
Well, I like that before. Burger's like, look, see, I loosened it up. It's like, that doesn't work that way.
And then you just see it was Stretch. Like, oh, hey, guys. So they're going around. They're looking, stealing all this shit. Like, we got to look for clues. You see Stretch has a thing of pills. Walter has a porno mag. Burger has, like, a switchblade. And then they find the bank heist plans.
And I like how Burger, finds a sandwich and starts eating it. Like, dude, like, what are you doing? It's like, whenever there's food just laying around, he just goes for it.
And then he's all like, oh, you got to give it back to me. It has my teeth prints in it. Like, he just says some of the stupidest shit. And then Slim, the guy who, is now... No, Slim, the guy who has the eye patch now.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I know someone's here. He's walking around. I know someone's here. What are you guys doing? He's just looking around. He's getting closer to Peggy. And then she has the whole devil and an angel pop on her shoulder. But the devil is Burger. The angel is Walter. And they found, like, a switchblade. And she's like... Burger's like, stab him in the balls! Stab him in the balls! And like, Walter is just like, light him on fire! Like, in like a whisper, and then because she has like a spray can, like a lighter, and just from there, sets fucking Slim on fire, so now he doesn't have an eye patch, he's now just burnt. They run out of there, and then they see that her dad is reconvening with them, and like, oh shit, it's getting deeper.
Well, that's what I kind of like about Paige. Is Paige almost is like, she's like partial psychopath almost. Like somebody who's very friendly, but it's like the person you really do not want to be on the wrong side of. Like, because, in a sense, we're looking at her like she's our main character. She's the protagonist and all this kind of stuff like that. But you could see if it, like, the story came from somebody else at school, be like, I don't know if I trust this girl. You know what I mean? This girl can, like, flip on you in like a dime. And when she goes the distance, she goes the full distance.
Yeah. So she doesn't really. It's nothing subtle with her. It's one way or the other. It's But with so while they're trying to figure out what to do next, Walter is trying to find he's trying to make a chemical. I think he's trying to make something explode, but Paige has to borrow his glasses in order to do this next part of their plan. She's like, all right, well, here's the thing. These guys are a bunch of fucking idiots, and they're trying to rob a bank. They're gonna get my dad killed or arrested. And right now, we're low on money. They're gonna try and take our house. So we do need to get the thing robbed, but I don't want my dad to have to go down because he's working with these assholes. So we're gonna do it ourselves. And from there, she borrows a couple things from everybody else, including Walter's glasses, and then gets a lay down at the bank, pretending to be like some student, kind of like, "Hey, I'm here for the bank tour." Like, and she gets the full bank tour.
She's also even got like Stretch's like headgear, like braces thing on too.
That he wears at night. Yeah, he only wears it at night, essentially. And something we forgot to mention earlier, these kids, sometimes they talk on a ham radio.
Yeah, well, they got CB radio going on there.
Oh, CB radio. Yeah,
well, that also brings up, I love, because like there's that scene where they're on the CB radio that happens earlier on. They're just talking like, normal kids would. Because I remember being a kid, like, and always wanted to, well, we didn't live close enough that you could use those CB radios to each other. But I just remember being like, teenagers being like, dude, we got to put CB radios in our cars. It's going to be like the Dukes of Hazzard.
And then they're talking on the CB radio like, "This is Captain Glory Hole coming in."
Yeah, I just love how this trucker guy just like jumps on in and just like doesn't really care.
And he's just like, he's like, says like, "All I know is I got like a case of beer and some Quaaludes for $40. I'm a boy. $20."
Just like does it. Just like, I think it's always funny too because like Captain Glory Hole always calls her a boy, never refers to her as a girl.
Just tell you what, little dude. Like he always calls her little dude.
Yeah,
I know plenty of boys named Paige.
Yeah, I think of Jimmy Page. You like Jimmy Page, don't you? Here, have a Quaalude in the house.
Just for you. First one's free. So that's just a small throwaway thing we've got to mention, but it's going to come back later. So they're getting the full laydown of this. She's getting the whole tour of this bank, pretending to be like this nerdy girl in economics class. And the lady leading the tour is actually the mother of the jock kid. And she goes in there, she's like, "Oh, here's my son. You said you go to the same school as him?" She's like, "Holy shit!" And he's like in the most awkward picture.
Yeah, it's like that. That was kind of like one of those. I'm like, I wonder what that's supposed to refer to.
Well, because maybe it's like a phase of like where people just put their kids in weird. Because like he's wearing these ridiculously like short jumpsuit thing, and he has like a flower in his mouth, legs crossed. Just like she's like, "What the fuck?" when she sees it.
I know that looks like the picture that Glory Hole should have been like taking of him.
Like, "Oh yeah, that's a pretty boy." And he has like a little tie too, and then it just does this montage of her going through the bank, being bored about the history and all that. And she's like, "Any other questions?" Like, "Yeah. How long does it take the cops to get here if there was a robbery? Where are all the cameras? How many cameras? And
how many security guards are they armed? Are they not armed?" It goes like all these like details that should be sending up like a red flag.
Yeah. And she's like, "Well, I can't answer all that for you. I can tell you, though, we opened the vault with this key right here, yada, yada, yada." Like, "Okay, cool, thank you." And then she bounces out. And then, while she was gone, Walter was trying to make some kind of explosive material, but he read the thing wrong because his glasses were off, and he accidentally made truth serum. And when they throw, like, truth serum on Burger, like, what does he say here? He says, let's see, Fergie,
you said something about like sneaking into like the teacher's locker to like watch him change, and it's like he's like, "I was trying to look for like Miss Hendricks to see if she was like changing, but instead I just saw the PE coach."
Yeah, he has a weird dong, like real weird. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, it's a lot of that kind of humor, and like I mean, this is one of those books where I think it's fine as is. It doesn't need to be made into a movie, but if you make it into a movie, don't stray too far away from the writing, because it's already really fucking funny and really quick-witted. And what ends up happening is while he was gone, he realized Stretch got beat up by the same jock guy. So he's like, that motherfucker, I'm tired of this shit. She grabs a fire hydrant, walks right into the boys' room where he's smoking, whacks the dude in the face, knocking some teeth out. And this one dude's gonna step in, she sprays back, like, stay back, stay the fuck back! And then the teacher walks in like, what's going on here? And they throw the truth serum on the jock. And he's like, yeah, I beat him up, and also this, also that. And they're just like, okay. They're trying to figure out, like, a situation, like, oddly enough, it's all true. And then when they're going to check his locker, they have all the shit from the bank robbery, all the plans, and they do something to make a distraction to get the teacher to look away, so they throw the shit for the bank heist into his locker.
Yeah. And then also, like, it's like in his locker too. It's like he's just got a bunch of other like weird, like nudie pictures all on his wall and everything in there.
Like it looks like a cell, like a cell
prison cell. Yeah,
like yeah. Essentially, they're talking about, okay, we got to figure out a way how to get that shit back right there, because So from there, they end up saying, okay, well, we got to practice stealing. So then and this is kind of interesting. They show them planning on how to. We gotta they're like, we gotta get good at stealing. We gotta get good at like making a heist. So let's start at the candy store. And the way they do that is it just shows like 2 pages, a spread of them, and it kind of has like a step by step. You see what they're all doing, what they do to distract, and how they steal from the candy store.
Yeah, they really just kind of go through the whole thing and just how one's distracting while the others. And then when they come on out, they're like, "What'd you get?" And of course, like Paige like steals money. It's like Burger, of course, steals a big jar of candy. Walter couldn't steal anything.
He couldn't bring himself to do it.
Yeah, and I can't remember what. Somebody got his wallet. I think Stretch got the wallet.
That was Stretch. Burger just got a big jar of licorice.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm not paying for candy anymore."
Yeah, and then that's when like Slim and the big Nazi guy are walking by. Like, oh, there's those fucking kids! And then, like, that's when Burger breaks the candy jar over Slim's head, and rather than chasing him, the big Nazi guy just starts eating the candy off the ground.
Yeah. And then
from the... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just say, you continue on.
Well, from there, then they kind of go into more planning and a couple of scenes with her dad and trying to figure the whole thing out. I mean, I guess from here, that's where we just kind of go... If we were to kind of follow it closely, it would just be a lot of back and forth. That's when they get the keys, when they switch around, get the keys over here, they switch around. Short and simple, though, the thing where it makes them getting their the plans back, which I thought this part was one of the funniest scenes, is when they break into the jock's house, they end up like they kind of they get a foreign exchange student. It's just like this weird-looking kid with a bowl cut and a red shirt, and they're having this whole dramatic moment, like Paige and her father. He's like, "Who's the guy in the back seat?" "Oh, that's the foreign exchange student." "Does he speak English?" "I don't know."
It's like it's funny because like they don't come back to him very often, so you learn absolutely nothing about him. He's just like a patsy just being used.
He just stands there looking confused the whole time. And then what ends up happening is she uses him to go to the door and says, like, "I need you to say this." And he says, like, the wrong thing. "No, say this." Like, "I'm here to drop off homework." Yes, just like that. Just like that. So he uses him to, like, lure the jock out of his room. She goes upstairs, and he has in his desk, like, this thing, caution tape, like, do not go in, private. Like, this guy's a fucking retard. And goes in, steals the fucking plans. He's like, "Hey," and that's where he said you see the whole plan, like, mapped out. You see it step by step. While he's doing this, she's doing that, all this and that, and that's where you see somebody in the office, and, like, downstairs, I think on a computer, maybe TV, watching Frankenstein suck off the Wolfman.
Trying to pull that one up. I just want to see what that Frankenstein thing is.
I think it's Frankenstein sucking off the Wolfman.
Oh, it totally is.
In the far right-hand corner, yeah.
Yep, well, you know what it is, because, like, you look down there, it's like, it's almost probably the uncle who's staying in the basement. Because I've seen that before with people's houses, where you get the uncle, and they're like, I mean, there was one time, there was a friend that we have, that he had his uncle, who was a real nice fella, don't be wrong, but he was literally living, like, in the basement of their house, but it was, like, the basement that was, like, like the underground where like it was like a dirt floor, like kind of how in your house, how it has a dirt floor, like, and that's where you pretty much just put storage stuff in there. It's not made to be lived in. Well, he was living in that.
Just breathing in all this fucking dirt.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a full-on bed and everything. I mean, it looked like an apartment that just happened to be on dirt in a basement.
Huh. That's interesting.
That's what that guy looks like right there. Watching.
I guess you take what you can get watching fucking Universal monster porn.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, she ends up breaking in, stealing the plans back, and he has a couple of joints and whatnot in there. And she sets it on fire. She's like, "Hey, what the fuck you doing?" She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'll tell my mom you're in my room." I'm like, "Okay, you're grounded for beating up a kid at school and doing drugs. And you're gonna tell your mom you have a girl in your room?" She's like, "Oh well, by the way, like, what was it? Like, by the way, but you better stop smoking pot." Like, what? There's just a whole his whole desk is on fire.
Yeah, you can explain that smell to her.
Yeah, explain that to her, asshole. Like, flips the bird and just slides out the window.
And then, well, you know what the cool thing too is, like, once I finally get to like this heist part, what I like about the heist is, like, you know, because you got this almost like goofy kid kind of like story in a sense, so you kind of expect it to have like that Goonies feel, and this is where I almost feel like why, like, I think that Goonies description on the back of the book isn't like, I mean, it does work. Don't get me wrong. I think it does describe it, but like, I think this is what I like about it. Like, when it gets to like the heist part, the heist goes real.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Plus, here's the thing to mention. As I said earlier, whenever they're having some kind of fantasy, because what would happen a lot of times is they'll be playing like a game, like a video game, or playing Dungeons and Dragons,
or RC cars.
RC cars, and the characters are talking amongst themselves like that. Then it goes back to reality. It always goes bad. At some point, it's going as it's going. It seems to be going good for a second, and then something happens that's kind of unexpected, and Burger makes it worse.
Yeah, he always does.
He always makes it worse. He always just diverts from the page and does his own thing and fucks it all up. And that, I didn't notice it the first time I read the book, but that happened. At some point, they're actually laying down their plans, because what's happening is before they actually do the heist, they're laying out the plans with action figures. So there's like this He-Man, Rambo, Conan ripoff that's kind of walking around, and then there's like a unicorn suddenly in the bank. Like, why is there a fucking horse? Because the horse is the only thing I can have for a bank teller. Anyway, and then, like, you know, there's like a bumblebee robot there. She's like, wait, you gotta be the bumblebee? Like, well, yeah. Why didn't you get a chance to pick it? I thought it was just a car. I didn't know it transformed into fucking Bumblebee. You know?
Yeah.
So then suddenly, you know, he's just like, I don't want to be like, too late, dude. Let's just finish following up the plan. And all of a sudden, you just see like the car just break into a million pieces. Fuck you! Now you're the Rock. How's that sound? And then it just cuts back to reality. Like, Burger, you fucking asshole.
I also just love all the little details it has, like just like how the action figures, just like where they're kind of worn off at, and it's like how the Rambo guy's like missing his fist, and how even like the pretty much like the unicorn's like missing some of its like mane and so on. Just these toys, it's like they've been well played with and are kind of worn out. Like, just the small little details in there are pretty neat.
One character has like a weird little like knife like literally taped to his arm.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, then from there they just end up kind of having, because I guess from here we can talk about that's when they talk to this guy, and by that way they get this, which we should mention. She meets up with Captain Gloryhole and talks him into buys a gun, but it turns out just to be a flare gun.
Yeah.
So,
but he does come back around again. Like, Captain Gloryhole's actually reliable in a bad way, I guess.
Yeah. So essentially, they end up having Captain Gloryhole make a distraction to bring cops to the other side of town, so they can go over there and pull off this heist. And they do it, and it's kind of reminiscent of the way they looked before. She's dressed up. Paige is dressed up in a suit, but she's wearing like this dog-like bandana. Stretch dressed up like a cowboy with a bandana. Burger's dressed like Batman. Walter's dressed like
drunk
a princess.
Batman almost.
Pretty much, yeah. And the whole time, you know, he's like, "Oh, I wanted to drive." Like, Burger, you're too fucking short to drive. Your feet can't reach the pedals. But it's my mom's car. You know, like that kind of shit.
He's like, "I'll find a way." Like, what? You're gonna find a way in like 30 minutes?
And then they go into the bank heist is going good for a minute. It's going real good because they actually have squirt guns. But
no, they have paintball guns of some sort, don't they?
It was, well, they're like squirt guns, but they're filled with like some kind of chemical that Walter made to knock him out. That was initially what he was trying to make.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
So they shoot some of this liquid and they just get knocked out. Now that's really fantasy, but this thing's already really over the top, so it works. And it starts to go good, and then they already have this pre-recorded message they got from listening to the radio the other day of just saying like, there's no disturbance over here, everything is fine. It's like, can you repeat that? It was a little staticky. They repeat it, and then it just goes further back to like another conversation that happened earlier in the book, and they realize that like, oh wait, wait, what the fuck was that? Like, sir, we can't understand you. And then Paige just has to grab the radio, and it's literally making an homage to Star Wars and Han Solo. Everything's fine here now, great. How are you? It was just a malfunction, that's all. We're sending reinforcements. Like, not really in the mood conversations anyway. Guys, we're gonna have company. You know,
just like shoots with the paint gun.
Yeah, so literally like an homage to Star Wars.
See, and that's the thing is like the homages it has are like so few and far between that like that's probably like the biggest one that they sort of have, and it's like they never feel like they really take you out. Like Paper Girls is always bad about like I always felt like those homages really took you out of the story. Like it made me just kind of have like that cringe. Like okay, let's just shoehorn in the '80s stuff here.
Like it jammed, it just rips your mouth open and pours like a monster what was it, like Monster Squad in there, and like, you know, just all these random different 80s references, which at the time we're like, oh wow, that's a weird random cup, and now since
that would have been kind of, maybe in 2005 you could have got away with that and it would have been really cool, but I feel by like 2015 you're kind of past that time. Not saying that, once again, not that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, like, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into, but sometimes I feel like you should be a little bit more delicate about how you do it. Like, you know what I mean, like, we get it, where this one does it so well. I mean, even the part where she talks about she wants to go see a movie and she's like, can we go see Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia? And I'm like, good writer right here. You throw that movie, you're throwing a good movie in there. See, that's like something we would have done. You know what I mean? Like, that's our kind of reference. So I like that. Like, you're going to throw a reference in there that 95% of people aren't even going to, probably 99% of people aren't even going to get. You know?
Well, I'm going to say this, that Star Wars reference, that's not even like, I mean, yeah, a lot of people know that. But at the exact same time, it's not like I'm your father or use the Force. It's not like any of the obvious shit that would have no moment there. But that actually, I just liked it just because it actually fit the scenario. It was funny. And without even hearing her tone and her voice and just reading it and seeing the position she was in that shot, and then she actually literally shoots the fucking her own recorder, which would have no helping at the moment. It's just like, okay. Like, I just thought that worked and that was funny. That's a way you homage Star Wars without, you know, making it overtly obvious.
Yeah, and feeling a little bit more original, exactly. And I think that's the good qualities of this book, is that like the references when they are done, because once again, there's nothing wrong with references. References are kind of like necessary, but I think it's when you just got like just the ones that you see everybody kind of goes. It's almost like, you know, certain things like, you know, it's like, and Star Wars ones, it's tough to kind of reference Star Wars anymore. You know what I mean? Like, perfect example is when Kevin Smith was doing it in Clerks. Super fresh, super original. But by this point, you know, everybody and their mother's kind of done it in their movies, that you almost got to be, it's weird just because you want to mention Star Wars here and there, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of those ones when you pull those extra lines that people don't use it nearly as much, that's when it's always kind of cool. And that's a perfect example of where it works fine, works great, and it's funny. And it makes for the perfect scene, too.
Yeah, so, and as that happens, that's where her uncle and his partner pull in. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing over here? We're already in the area. When we knew you guys used to be staking this thing out. Like, well, we were trying to stop this before the other you know, robbers did, but before they, you know, had a chance to rob this. Like, they robbed a different bank, and they
already got away.
Yeah, they didn't even call your dad, you know. So then he was like, oh shit, and then from there they're just trying to figure out what to do. And Berger already kind of left by this point because he had to leave and he had to go around the corner or something. That was another thing.
Because he escaped at one point and then he came back.
He escaped and then came back, and he came back with some shit tied to his feet.
Yeah, bricks tied to his feet.
Yeah, so he's like, so hey guys, I can drive now. Like, hey, don't point that gun at my friends! And just runs.
Jumps on the back of a cop.
Literally, like he jumps on the fucking dragon. And there's literally all these callbacks to like the previous gameplay and fantasy things they did originally. And, you know, He's like, you ruined he says, like, and this is under no circumstances should you ever really jump on a cop, you know?
Well, no, because it says, like, any other circumstance should you ever really shoot a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't, that's another one where it doesn't show it. It has, like, that kind of funny censor, and, like, almost like a silent movie censor, it kind of feels like. And then, boom, it cuts to, like, Burger's laid on the ground bleeding out.
Yeah, and it's still they play it as kind of intense for a minute, but not overtly, not like to a ridiculous level. And from there, just like you know, by then, like, I think Paige got a hold of one of the security guard's guns and then shoots the cop. Doesn't kill him, but like shoots him in the shoulder. And then our uncle says to him, like, I can't do anything to protect you now. He's like, you never could. And they run out the door and they're just pedal to the metal, just getting down there. And it's kind of like a small homage to Reservoir Dogs, but nothing too bad. You know, he's in the back bleeding out. And then there's a couple points in earlier chapters where they show them just like hitting like this ramp, flipping the bird to the cops, and then, you know, and then it shows this, we see the continuation of that. They hit the ramp and you realize what they're heading towards, there's not like another side for them to get on. They're just driving right into the fucking water. There's really nowhere for them to go. You don't realize that until this point.
Well, they're blocked by the cops, so they have to make, like, a quick decision.
Yeah. So they hit that, and then from there, they just, you know, they get out, and that's where it all kind of hits into reality. Because they have this couple of visions where they see the characters they would play as, like, up in the clouds, like, throwing money in the air, like, we did it! And then just that all fades away, goes to gray, and just, you know, you see them out in the water, Burger's floating there, and they have their arms up like, we're just kids!
Well, I think it's that kind of thing, it's like, because Paige, it's that childhood thing, she keeps having these dreams of like, it's, you know, we're gonna get this money, the heist is gonna go through, you know, my family's gonna be happy. It even shows like her mom, like it's almost like somehow, some way that's gonna fix that problem too. And it's just that kind of childhood thing, like you think it's like, if this all goes through, you know, think about it, like everything's gonna be taken care of. Because I think it's every kid, you always kind of thought like, you get those like ideas in mind, like, man, you know, if we could just pull off this one like heist, think about it, we'll never have to do anything ever again. You know, it could be like an endless summer, you know, you get that Ed, Ed and Eddie kind of idea going in your head. And I even like too is like when they're in the bank. I remember like there's a line in there where Walter's loading the bag, and then Paige is like, "Dude, how much money do you got?" He's like, "Oh, we got like 9,400." And there's like a pause for a second, and they'd be like, "That's a lot of money." I just love how it's like totally like as a kid, it's like, oh my god.
We can retire forever now. We never have to work again.
Yeah, or it's like pretty much like somebody's like minimum wage, probably like of the 80s, you know, or maybe a little bit more than that, but still like somebody's yearly salary. That's about all it is.
Yeah, so it's like there's also like going back. I just want to say this because since Burger's dying off here, I just want to say a few funny moments for the Burger does. Like he did something to distract the cops earlier. Like, he throws, like, a fucking egg at a cop car. Well, first off, the cops just having this weird conversation. Like, so, like, I got my kid a Halloween gift. Like, a what? Yeah, you don't get your kid a Halloween gift? What the fuck? No, I take him trick-or-treating. Oh, okay. Then he gets pegged in the side of the head with a fucking egg. And Burger's like, oh, it's that fat kid that's running around throwing eggs at people. And then he's like running down the street. And then it's just some of the small things. Because I remember Ellen Moore once said, one of the reasons he didn't like his books being made into movies is because he was trying to tell stories that could only be told as comics rather than, you know, because for a while comics were emulating movies, and now he's like, let's try and do something you can only do in a comic. And I think this book does a couple of things like that, such as this moment. And then Burger, I guess you could do this in a movie, but it just works, I think, better in print. It's like kind of at the side-scrolling Super Mario angle. I'm not sure if that was intentional.
Yeah, I think it's totally supposed to be like that.
It says, like, as he's jumping, it's like, it follows, like, fuck! And then he hits, like, a trick balloon. You! Like, over this fence.
No, I love that. I thought that was just, because it's, like, perfectly, you knew exactly the sound effect coming in by using those words like that.
Yeah. So,
and I was like, too, because the cops were like, man, that fat kid really can fly.
Yeah. So even though Burger dies, because he's the only
it's
one.
It's kind of funny because it never really specifically says that though in the book.
He's not there at the end.
He's not there at the end, but that doesn't mean he's not alive because
they just don't like him enough to invite him.
15 years from now, I mean, he might not be like, you know, we don't know what goes on from that point on because there's a big stretch of time between there, which I think I like that kind of ending. It's just like later, and it just shows Paige, and you can tell she's probably like in her mid-20s now, coming out of prison, and she just kind of walks up, sees her dad, just like, I'm sorry, Dad. And she's like, I'm sorry, little princess. And it's like, that's it. It was a perfect moment. And then behind her, you just see Walter and Stretch, which I guess he's not really Stretch anymore. Now he's normal height.
Yeah, he stopped growing in the 7th grade.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's like, it could be he's dead, or it could be you just, there's not really an explanation. I mean, assuming it's probably dead, but I also like how they don't really it's not that big of a deal.
They didn't invite him.
Yeah.
Well, she cared enough to shoot a cop over him, so I guess that's something. But at the same time, though, yeah, like, I like that it wasn't overtly sad. And like, when he died, I mean, it was this thing like, oh, this can go bad. This is a little dose of reality for a second. But at the exact same time, it wasn't like he was just a boy. He's just a boy. Like, it would suddenly be hard. Boy. It would so hard to conjure up all this sympathy for Burger. So rather than having him be all like, it's getting dark, he's just embracing the fantasy. He's starting to hallucinate shit. He's like, my mom's car could fly. Like, he's just enjoying it all.
Yeah, exactly. He just goes with it. But I
you realize part of that fantasy was his at the end as he's past it, I think.
Yeah. But I just kind of like, I just like how it goes there, but it's almost like it goes there like to like those kind of like almost like a dark area, but it's like an okay. It doesn't just go straight dark. It's more like, hey, things happen, but you know what? We're gonna work them all out. And I almost like that. Almost has a very optimistic like ending to it. Something that's like, instead of just going full dark, or instead of going full like, hands on your hips, laughing, almost like, oh, we just got away and we had a good old time and we shared donuts with the cops. It's like, no. There is things that need to be done. Just because you're 11 years old doesn't mean you're not going to go to jail for 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to say this right here. This is probably my favorite comic book I've read in 2017. It's probably my favorite comic I read was this one. And it was, like I said, I did part of a solo episode, never finished it, and never posted it, but that's one of the reasons why I want to do it for this one, because I just think it's such a good book, and I think it deserves a lot of shout-outs, and I look forward to other things Matthew Rosenberg does, and as well as the artist and the inker on this book.
Well, that's the same guy, Tyler Bass, or Bass, I'm not too sure how I wrote it down, or Boss, one or the other.
Well, there's 3 names on here, I think. Boss, Muir, and Rosenberg.
Yeah, well, there's the writer, then there's the artist. I think there's some.
Yeah, here we go.
There's like a
art
layout
design.
person and art design and some extra kind of stuff.
Yeah, we got Tyler Boss on art and design, flatting, Claire Dezutti, I think I'm gonna probably mispronounce that name. Lettering, Thomas Maurer, wallpaper design, Courtney Menard, and then writing, Matthew Rosenberg. And I think the wallpaper design is more of like, because in between issues they'd have like this weird crazy wallpaper that was something focused about that issue, and then maybe his other backgrounds throughout the book.
Yeah, there's some wallpaper in just certain sections and so on. So it's kind of got that weird, like, where it feels like it's 2 guys, and then you kind of got a couple of like almost like assistant type people throwing things in there.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite books that came out 2000. No, it is my favorite book that came out 2017. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. It's kind of like it's probably the 3rd time I've read it, and even though it's different, it kind of gives me that same vibe that, like, because I was reading all this stuff like, oh, it's like Goonies meets Tarantino or Wes Anderson. I'm like, I kind of see that, but it seems more of kind of like, to some extent, sort of a kid version of Nice Guys. It reminded me a lot of Nice Guys, kind of. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
it definitely feels like Nice Guys, and then I also feel like, even just me mentioning In Bruges, like, it doesn't have the hard drama as much as In Bruges does, but it has feelings like almost like kid versions of those kind of characters as well, too, sometimes.
Or maybe not as hard as In Bruges, maybe even 7 Psychopaths.
Yeah, like 7 Psychopaths,
like
there's probably a little bit better example. Kid versions of those characters. Because that's the movie that tones down the drama a little bit more. And that's how I sort of feel this is. Like, it's fun, funny, you're on like an adventure, and I just like how it has that kid feel, but just almost takes that dark turn at the end, but it's an optimistic dark turn. It's a realistic ending, and I like that. I think that's what's really neat about it.
Yeah, if we're going to compare, like, is it Michael McDonough or Malcolm McDonough?
It's Michael McDonough. Yeah.
Michael McDonough, yeah. I'm going to say In Bruges and 7 Psychopaths are kind of like comedies, or In Bruges focus a little bit more on, well, they're action comedies, where In Bruges focuses a little bit more on the drama and the intensity, while 7 Psychopaths focuses more on the comedy and the action.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely kind of think. Well, and that's even when you compare like Three Billboards, because Three Billboards feels like that leans a little bit harder on the drama, but still has a lot of the comedy in it.
It pulls back on the action though, but it's not that kind of movie, so that's fine. It feels a little bit more like a Coen Brothers movie, like a very, very intense Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Four Kids Walk Into a Bank. We'll put links in the description so you can grab yourself a copy off of Amazon and then help support the podcast all at the same time. This book is definitely worth getting. It's just kind of nice to read something different. I haven't been able to go out of, as I said, I got a big old fat stack of books, and sometimes the ones you just get kind of stuck on the indie train, you kind of forget about what else there is out there. And it's nice to kind of spread yourself around and see these other books.
And it's like you said earlier, it's because you get so many period pieces. I mean, I guess you get more, I'm going to say recent period pieces like 80s and 90s where they try a little too hard to let you know when this takes place. And you could tell it takes place in the 80s, but it harkens back to things from the 50s, even the 70s. So I think for that, since it was that mixture, and I think also the fact that it takes place in the 80s makes sense because it would probably be easier to pull off a bank heist then than it would be now. So with digital and all that kind of stuff. So
well, I think when people write, like, you pull from your own childhood, so that's obviously where he's pulling from. He's pulling from being an 80s kid.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit of that, too. And it doesn't feel like forced. Like, it just feels like, yeah, it happens to take place in the 80s, but here's some stuff I grew up around and some people. I totally feel like Berger was a kid who lived next door to him. I totally feel like that.
Oh, yeah, totally was. Was that kid who was always over, even if you didn't want to see him and so on like that.
And I think I like it so much because he's a character who you shouldn't like. On paper, he should not work. You should be rolling your eyes every time he walks in the room, but you can't help but, like, he's one of the best parts of the fucking book.
Well, it's the Cartman philosophy, because that's how Cartman is too. Cartman really is, like, on paper, if you explain that to somebody, be like, oh my god, that just sounds like the biggest asshole ever. But as you watch it, you just kind of realize, either one, you just assume that maybe you are the biggest asshole too. But you're like, I don't know why, I just like this Cartman fella. He might be doing some shitty stuff, but boy, is he always funny. I can't wait to see what he does next. And that's how Berger sort of is. I can't wait to see what he does next. Like, I love the part too. There's a scene in there where, like, they're planning, and it's just like a montage, and they're all planning it out. And like, Walter's working on the science experiment, putting the paintballs together. Stretch is like working in like the wood shop, putting together whatever else they need, and so on. And it just keeps showing Berger. It's just like he's sitting there like playing video games one day, then he's sitting there like eating ice cream, though he's allergic to it. There's something else he was doing too, where it's just like totally like not. He's just doing absolutely nothing compared to everybody else.
Well, when Walter was there and working on this is an earlier scene when Walter's there, we're on chemistry stuff. He's just sitting there, just like you see Walter just slaving away, and Jim's Burger stand there with like a test tube in his mouth and like a glove on his head, just doing stupid shit.
Oh yeah, no. Here's the other one. He's reading a magazine upside down on the toilet. Just the little things, like he's reading a magazine, but he's reading it upside down, just to top it all off.
Well, plus this book just has great comedic timing, especially for a comic, and I don't know, I can't really. I'm just reading this thing right now. I'm just looking at the fuck you. He jumps over the fucking fence. So this is the scene where they yell like, "Hey, if you run too fast, you'll lose your stupid little hat."
Well, and it's like that's my favorite. My favorite type of comic books always are the ones that like have the hint of comedy to them. I know I say that as somebody who writes Pizza Boy, so it's like, well, no fucking way, or like, yeah, of course you like fucking comedy, but it's like one of those ones I don't find enough books or enough comic books that have enough comedy in them. It seems like it's kind of like it's still kind of the rare genre in comic books is comedy. It's weird how it sort of is because what do people think of comic books? They're funny books. Well, obviously they're not that funny anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Only a few of them are funny, you know what I mean? And whenever I find them, it's like those, I always just gravitate towards them. When the comedy's good, it's just like, you can't beat that. Got a great story to back it all up with, and then you got fantastic art. It's like you got a winning combination there. But, yeah. I can't say anything more good about this book. This is definitely one. I'm glad you recommended it. It was fun to talk about. 10 out of 10? Yeah, pretty much a damn perfect book, you know what I mean? I would say. Maybe I'll give it... Yeah, well, I'll just give it a 10. I mostly don't give a rating, but I feel once I give a rating, then I become a different person.
Yeah,
unless I'm telling
really
a rating to you.
That seriously. Yeah, well, I don't mean like 10 out of 10, like, fucking some IGN shit.
Yeah,
because my thing is like, are you gonna play a game underneath a 5? Really? That's my thing on the 10 out of 10 rating.
Well, that's the thing about like video game ratings is that like the scary thing about a video game, I know we're going off topic here, but it's like you put a game under an 8 out of 10 score, people think the game's fucking terrible. It's weird how it is. It's like a game will get like a 7 out of 10, and people are like, oh, that game was pure shit. And it's like a 7 out of 10 is not a bad rating. Like what? I don't know why people like, it's like, why even have like all these other numbers if you're going to think that a 7 out of 10 is bad? It just means it's not perfect. But it's still.
That's why you stick with like 4 or 5. Just should get the point across.
Yeah, I feel if a game's under 5, that's when you should probably stay away from it. Maybe, you know. But who knows? Maybe you will like it. You can't be based off somebody else's opinion, you know.
But yeah, anyway, back to the book though. This is probably, I think, it was a perfect book. So
yeah, I think it is just one of those ones, just like an overall great book. You know, just everything about it's great. I'd like to see more kind of this, and I probably should just check out that one you were talking about originally.
I'd love to do We Can Never Go Home. That one's a little bit more of a little bit more serious. I like this one more, but We Can Never Go Home is still a good book, and there's still some like comic book references and winks and nudges to like, you know, big comic book fans in it. But it is mostly, it's just kind of like, it's kind of a Bonnie and Clyde story with kids with superpowers, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's definitely good. And it's definitely worth owning and definitely worth reading. For Kids Walk Into the Bank, I think, is the better, stronger book because I think there's a lot more character to it. But I would love to do We Can Never Go Home at some point.
But yeah, we'll have to do some more like comic book retrospects at some point because it's just fun to kind of mix and match it up beyond just movies and games and all that fun stuff. But till next time, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comic books, cartoons, music, movies, and more. Make sure, if you want to grab this book, we'll have that link, as we said before, just in the description. Amazon link, boom, get yourself a physical copy, boom, get yourself a digital copy, whether you get that on Kindle or Comixology. It's all there. Grab some today. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
We'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comix Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comix Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunnigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again, we're out of here.